September 22nd, 2020, and I'm going to take you on a tour of my garden. So last time I did a garden tour video for YouTube, a lot of things went wrong with it, but I'm hopeful this time around. It also ended up being a really long video. As you can see, it's not a super small garden, but I'll try to get through things pretty quickly. So I'll start right over here on my first garden bed. So over on that end, I've started some cucumbers and some different kinds of pole beans that should climb up the arch that I have going on here. So far, they've been growing quite a bit slower than I was expecting, but I'm still hopeful, being that it's still 99 degrees outside. I'm not sure if they're not getting enough sun or something like that, but we'll see. We'll give them a little bit of time, and hopefully we'll get some cucumbers here before wintertime comes. A lot of what's growing in here, I'm embarrassed to say, is weeds, but I am content to let the weeds grow, seeing as there's nothing else in the garden right now. And as you can see, they kind of grow right along where the irrigation is, and you can also hear my neighbor's rooster. So everything kind of is growing along where the irrigation line is, although there is some additional irrigation underneath the whole bed. So it's a lot better water than you would think from just that one irrigation line. There are some tomato plants in here as well. That's a tomato plant. That's a tomato plant, and I think it's even a little corn. I don't remember planting corn there, but if it's coming up, it's coming up. I oftentimes put corn cobs in my compost, so it could be from that. And then lastly, over here in this corner, I do have some basil and some cabbage and a green bean growing. So I did just kind of put a lot of different things in this bed to see what would grow well. And so that's what's going on with this particular bed. And here's the next bed. There's way too much stuff in here to go through all of it one by one, but some of the big things are this tomatillo plant that I've got here. There's this okra plant, which I don't eat okra, so I'm not entirely sure why I planted it. I think I thought I would eat it, and then I didn't. Everything under the little baskets, those are Dollar Tree baskets. I'm using those to keep the birds from digging around. As you can see, I just covered this up an hour ago and the birds came back and dug it all up again. So I use these baskets to keep the birds from digging everything up. This is a Santa Fe Grande pepper plant. I tried to grow this from seed a couple of times, but I wasn't successful, so I ended up just buying this plant from Lowe's. I haven't gotten any peppers yet because as you can see on the bottom, the squirrels really have eaten all the lower leaves off. It is starting to come back a little bit here, but for the most part, the squirrels have done quite a lot of damage to this particular plant. This is a cayenne pepper plant. It was enormous before I cut it back earlier so that I could fit some bird netting over here to keep the birds out, but I'm sure it's gonna come back here, especially now that it's kind of a more reasonable temperature. We're getting out of the 110 to 115 range, so I am expecting quite a bit from this pepper plant. And then here is an eggplant plant, and this, as far as I can tell, is the only eggplant on here. Looks pretty good. It's actually probably ready to eat, and as large as this plant is, it goes from here all the way over there. It hasn't been putting on much eggplant, I think because of the heat, but I think when they look like this here or that one, I think that's when you're starting to get eggplant. There's another good looking one down there, so hopefully we'll get some eggplant here soon. And then lastly under here, because I am excited about this one, this is a Valencia tomato. I grew those last spring. I was really happy with them. I thought they were delicious, so I'm excited to have another one growing. So that's what's going on in this bed. As I mentioned, there's other things in there. I didn't want to go through everything one by one, but this has been a tough bed to keep the birds out of, but I've been doing all right. This bed is another one that the birds have taken a liking to. My mom gave me the great idea of putting this weed fabric over top of the bed that will keep the birds from just completely digging up everything. So I do have a couple of things in here. This is some sort of a zucchini plant. I forget which one. I think it's a round zucchini plant. So that's been slow but steady growing. I'm hopeful to get zucchini from that one before the winter time. And then if I head over here, I did just put a whole bunch of sunflower seeds here. So these are all sunflower plants and they're doing pretty good. We've got this here, which I don't know what it is. It's a volunteer. So I'm excited to see what that ends up being. And then another volunteer as well. One thing I've learned over time with gardening is if something wants to grow somewhere, just let it. Don't try to move it. And those tend to be some of your best, most successful plants. So when I get a volunteer, I just let it go and I leave it be. So I almost skipped this bed, but I remembered it because it does have one really great plant in there, which you can see. So each thing under here was all stuff that I had planted or started from seed. And I have to put the baskets over to keep the birds out, even though I did catch a bird in here, which I knew the bird was in here because as you can see, it digs holes. Not really sure why, but it digs up lots and lots of holes throughout the bed. So the bird netting that I have here had pulled back just a little bit and this bird went right in. So I have to be really careful with how windy it can get to make sure that I keep the bed covered to keep the birds out. But yeah, there's a lot of different things growing in here. There's different, I did a lot of herbs in here this year. That's an oregano, that's a parsley. And then I put some different kale and cabbages kind of mixed together because as I mentioned, I'm learning the hard way that it's best to just mix things up. I really did not anticipate this eggplant getting so big. So, you know, but whatever, we'll see what happens. I might, after it's kind of done producing, I might cut it back. I don't even know if they're meant to go year to year or if they're just a seasonal thing. I didn't even do the research to find that out. But I was pleasantly surprised today to find out when I looked at the plant tag, because I completely forgot what it was, that it's actually a patio baby. So they're not going to get that big. So actually the couple of eggplant that I have on here are actually pretty close to eating. So I'm excited to get into those, find out what kind of the best size is and if it's ready to eat yet. I planted a lot of corn in here. I did corn this summer and I just couldn't keep it watered enough. So it went to seed pretty early and I didn't end up really getting any corn. But I just went all in and planted as much corn as I could over in this area. I know once it kind of gets to the height of the bird netting, I'm going to have to get rid of the bird netting and kind of let the birds in, which is really not what I want to do, but that's kind of how life goes. And on that topic, this is maybe the one thing in my garden that I'm most excited about right now. No, not my scarecrow, but this is a Mongolian giant sunflower. So supposedly, I believe this is the world's largest sunflower. The seeds are huge, and it can get, I think, oh, I forget, maybe like 15 feet tall or something like that. So I'm really, really excited. I didn't get as many seeds as I wanted in the seed packet, and the first, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, I didn't take good enough care of them, so they were kind of a waste. But I do have this one going. I'm not sure how tall it's gonna get, but this is an area of my garden that tends to kind of, however the irrigation is, it gets a little bit overwatered. So I'm pretty optimistic. Unfortunately, I had to kind of pull back the bird netting so that it could grow, and thus I think the birds were sneaking in. But regardless, I am super excited about it. I hope that I can get seeds from it after it grows, just so that I can have more to grow. I do have a couple seeds left from the seed packet, but I don't really know how far I will get with those. And now we're into this fifth bed. This is maybe my favorite bed right now, just because everything in here is doing so well. This is another one where there's quite a bit of weeds growing. This straw that I got as a mulch from a farm ended up having a lot of seeds in it. It doesn't bother me though, as I mentioned. When things are growing, I just let them grow, and it kind of helps condition the soil, and it's easy enough to just to pull them when you're done with them. But this here right in the middle that you're looking at is a strawberry plant. I just picked it up from the store maybe a week or two ago. I know that it's going to take over, so don't bother telling me. But I know it's going to take over, but I'm actually excited about that because long term, then maybe next year or the year after, this might eventually just be totally a strawberry bed. So this is here now. Hopefully it'll take over actually, and we'll eventually have a whole bed that's just strawberry plants. That is a... Oh, I can't lie, it's a type of a patty pan squash here. So this one is a type of a patty pan squash. It's called a Bennings green tint. This is a sort of Japanese winter squash, and you could see there's a green bean coming up there because I did put some different green beans throughout this bed as well. That is another round zucchini. That plant has been growing kind of slow, which surprises me, but I'm patient, so we're gonna let it go. These are 3 different eggplant plants that I've actually had going, oh, I don't know, for quite a while, and they just weren't in the ground at the right time. And then before I had the wire up, the rabbits ate them down to nothing every single time they started growing. So I've been kind of patiently waiting to get eggplant from these plants here. But as you can see, we've got flowers coming in really nice. So I'm optimistic to get eggplant, especially on that bed over there. I've got some eggplant coming in, so I think it's a good time of year for them. Someone actually at the garden center at Lowe's told me it's a good time of year for eggplant, and I believe her. And then lastly on this bed, as you can see, I've got this trellis arch here coming from one bed to the other. So here I planted quite a few different things that climb, and it'll kind of be survival of the fittest. But we've got some climbing beans. This is my loofah gourd. Ask me about it when I have a lot of time. And some different flowers, which another one that asked me about it when I have more time, and I'm really excited about those flowers. Maybe I'll make a video about those. 2 different cucumber plants, and then another vining flower. So I'm excited for those to go up this trellis. I almost wish that I could have started them earlier, but it was too hot, and so this is what I ended up with. So hopefully they'll climb really nicely from one end of the arch right over to the other bed. And here's the last bed. This bed has been completely empty basically all summer. I had all tomato plants growing in here during the summer, and between the heat and then some sort of tomato plant disease ran through and killed off all of the tomato plants that were in here. So that's why now I kind of plant my tomatoes sporadically throughout the garden. That's some advice that I had read a long time ago, but I didn't take it. I learned the hard way, I guess. But I just planted a pumpkin in here. I read that it's not too late for me to do pumpkins, so I just planted a pumpkin in here. That little one growing there is a zinnia, which I planted a couple of weeks ago. And then I planted a birdhouse gourd under that basket, and then an Armenian cucumber under that basket. So that might be all that I do in this bed, because I know that the pumpkin here is going to take up a lot of room and it's going to go really far. And if I end up planting too much more in here, I just know I'm going to regret it. And this bed's kind of off on the end. It's harder to get to, and it's one that the squirrels and the birds have been particularly interested in over time. So I think I'll just be easy on myself and just leave this bed mostly empty. And the same with that one too. That's another bed that the squirrels and birds are really interested in. So I'm just gonna, you know, be patient and just see how much I can get out of what I've planted in them so far. So that's the garden tour. Yes, it is a little messy. This is not the time of year where I'm most proud of how my garden looks, but this is the time of year that's, I guess, similar to spring in the Northeast, where you're pulling it together, you're putting new stuff in the ground, you're picking it up, you're getting it going real nice. So I'm excited and optimistic about that. And you know, this is kind of, for better or for worse, as bad as it gets in my garden. So it's all uphill from here. Thanks for watching.